All right, we should be on. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the A-Leagues of our own YouTube channel. Hopefully, we've had a little bit of a smoother landing this time, but welcome. My name's Lachlan Abel. I'm joined by Jacob Stevens. Jacob, hello to you.
Hello, everybody who's tuning in, if anybody is tuning in at this point.
Slowly trickling in. I'm sure more will come when the game gets underway. We are expecting a couple more. I think Chris, Paletti, perhaps even Ross at some point. I believe Will, who is the Mariners fan among us, is stuck at a local training, so he's not even at the game. He's not with us either, so unfortunate for him. But a big night for the Mariners, of course, the second leg of the interzonal final in the AFC Cup. Jacob, one more to the final of the AFC Cup. But we're about 9 minutes or so away from kickoff, which looks like a really decent crowd, actually, in Gossip, which is great to see. A nice little package of visiting supporters. Yeah, that looks good as well. And news on the timeline from James Dodd. The story goes that Abdish-Ata Kant are actually wearing last year's kit because their current year's kit didn't make it through transit to Australia. So their club president has had to fly over last year's kit.
Wow.
So they could wear tonight. So
they're really embracing the A-League spirit. It's good to see.
That is a bit of peak A-League in Asia, isn't it?
It is.
But shall we have a look at the teams before we get underway?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, off to you.
Yep. So the Mariners coming out with what I presume will probably be something like a 4-4-2 today. no massive changes in there. Jacob Farrell, obviously, and ALOO in as well. And then one quite obvious omission, Angel Torres, which, I think if you've read the news, you'll know exactly why that is the case. But it will probably be the Mariners looking to play Docker on the wing again in front of Stormry like they did last week. It wasn't massively successful, but you wouldn't play Rue ahead of Docker, so that seems the more likely way around for mine.
Yep.
Only going with the two central midfielders this game, which is quite interesting because, of course, that's an area they really struggled to progress the ball through in the first leg, and how much of that was down to the pitch, and the conditions there at the time. But it certainly seems like they're going to go to playing a little bit more direct, perhaps some wing play with the likes of Docker there. Qual Diaharis is starting as well. We know that he likes to stay quite wide, so it could be a case of the Mariners looking to get the ball wide early, and use the space out there rather than trying to play through the middle, which they really struggled with in that first leg.
Yeah, I think that the point of the pitch is an important one. They're going to be able to play along the ground a lot easier tonight, given the surface out there in Gosford. So hopefully that'll click a little bit better for them. We saw the goal that they scored last week was a pretty typical Brian Kaltak header with the ball in the air, of course. So hopefully that's a little bit easier for them tonight. I don't know about you. I'm expecting a fairly one-sided game. You'd hope the Mariners would get home pretty comfortably at home. Of course, we know that the game on the weekend was suspended due to travel, so who knows what impact that might have. But yeah, expecting a fairly comfortable Mariners victory tonight, I'd say.
Yeah, even with all their difficulties in that first leg, I think it was sort of a multifaceted thing why they didn't play well. Of course, the pitch, playing at high altitude against a team they haven't seen much of before, and probably just being happy to come away with the draw and take it to the home leg where they have that advantage. I think it's a combination of those things that meant that they probably didn't get the best result there. And you were saying at the time that in retrospect, after scoring that first goal, they'd probably be a bit disappointed with the draw, but giving them the option of the draw before kickoff, they probably would have taken it. So I think it's a thing, like you said, Lockie, where they'll be looking to be firing on all cylinders here tonight. They've got a pretty strong squad, and what we saw from Abdish-Ata was a lot of really good individual performances with the ball at feet. In particular, they were able to just dance around the Mariners defenders. I'd like to think that that's going to be less possible for them to do here, especially with the conditions. The pitch is looking fantastic there in Gosford, so it might be a case of trying to just dribble past people won't be as effective here, where the pitch is perhaps a little bit better and passing is more of an option.
All right, hello as well to everyone watching, of course. We've got a couple of people trickling in. Feely's is asking, are you guys Mariners fans? No, we're not, but we are A-League fans.
That's right.
So definitely hoping that the Mariners get the job done. Of course, we're at that stage in the competition now where there's a bit of a purse on the line as well. It's something like... actually, I'm going to get my numbers mixed up, but the step from the interzonal final to the final, the AFC Cup, is definitely a huge leap, perhaps in the region of $1 million, something like that. And of course, to win the tournament is even more. So it's financially significant, this 90 minutes as well.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing with these Asian competitions, is that we know, of course, well, or at least it came out, that teams don't make money when they win the championship in the A-League, and there's no prize money attached to it. But with these Asian games, that's what you get, and the further you progress, the more money you're going to make from it, and it can be a real lifeblood for the clubs here, because as we know, there's to talk about financial issues constantly here in Australian football, and that chance to get even just a couple million more can keep clubs afloat for a much longer time, or in the case of the Mariners, help them continue on with the footballing decisions that they've been making to build a really good culture at the club, a culture of winning, and they're currently on form for potentially one of the best couple of years in A-League history, just in terms of what they've been able to win, how they've been able to do it, and just how dominant they've been.
Yeah, for sure. And as we see, the teams just walk out onto the pitch. Now, the thing about prize money in Asian football is that it is extremely top heavy. So the numbers work out that if the Mariners don't make the final, they likely don't make a profit on the whole competition. So it's a handsome reward if they get there, but it's often this extreme to extreme. And you mentioned a report that was released a couple of months ago in conjunction with the PFA, claiming that the costs of even the Asian Champions League, let alone the AFC Cup, were just way too high, and they weren't properly incentivising teams to want to compete. So that's been a big problem for Australian teams competing. But the Mariners, we know, by virtue of locking up that top 2 place in the league, will play in the Champions League Elite next year as well, which is exciting for them.
Yeah, that's huge. And again, it's, you take those steps and you put yourself in the position to potentially win that money. So it's one of those things where, you've got to basically win it out to make a profit. But if that's not incentive enough, then I don't know what is. It's win this or we're going bankrupt sort of thing,
Yes, and they can't refuse to participate because then they get a whole lot of ramifications from the AFC, so it's really tricky. But there is increased payouts going into next year, at the very least for the finalists of the Asian Champions League Elite. That's all that's been released so far, and hopefully there's a little more filtering down that comes from that as well. Yes, but it looks like we're just about to get underway. The teams are taking their photos, getting in the huddle. We're about to kick off.
Well, this time around, Abdish-Ata have a lot fewer subs. I think they had something like 15 or some such subs in that first leg. It was they basically needed 3 benches, I reckon, to fit them all in. Yeah.
Hello again to everyone watching. Please do let us know. What are your predictions for the game? Where are you watching from? If you're a Newcastle Jets fan, do you hope the Mariners win? It's always a very interesting dynamic, isn't it, when rivals participate in Asia?
Yeah. It's one of those things where, do you support it for the good of Australian football or not because of that rivalry? Like,
we need the coefficient points.
That's right. But I know for sure there'll be Sydney fans who still look back at the Wanderers' success in Asia a little bit bitter. It's a funny dynamic. Because it's not the case in like Europe, where countries are pretty much guaranteed to have 3 or 4 teams going to Europe every season, so you can sort of support the team that's playing against your rival. But here in Australia, like you said, we need the coefficient points and we need to be getting as many teams into these competitions as possible. So we do need them to do well. That means sometimes wanting your rival to win a game, which it doesn't happen very often. That sort of feeling.
Do you reckon it was funny listening to Ryan Scott's comments after the Jets-Wellington game? Of course, the dynamic there is that the Newcastle Jets draw is helping the Mariners go in to win the premiership. Just having a word to Alex Rufer before he take the penalty, saying, I low-key hope you score. It's just a funny dynamic, like all these conflicting points of view everywhere.
It's great, isn't it? It was back in the 2016 season when Adelaide won, and it was down to the final day Brisbane victory game, I remember. And anything but a Brisbane win would secure the title for Adelaide, which meant supporting Melbourne Victory for the first and only time for Adelaide fans. And we regarded Lawrence Thomas as a hero for many, many years after that, simply for his performance that night to win the title for us, which is pretty funny.
Absolutely. Chris says it'll be the reverse of the previous game. Abdish-Ata are doing the bus parking today. I think that's probably a fairly correct assessment. Welcome, Chris. Hello to you. You were here last week as well, so it's great to have you back. But we do have kickoff in Gosford, and the match is underway. It looks like a back 3 here straight away, Jacob.
It does, which was a bit problematic for them last week because it was, a back 3 isn't inherently, a negative move to have that, but it did sort of slow things down. And with only that 2-man midfield, as I mentioned earlier, that's an interesting choice because it's going to really limit their options to progress the ball. There could be a lot of just recycling of possession and waiting to take their chance. And like I said, it could be a case of them just trying to play direct and wide from the get-go. So, sort of kicking the ball around that back line, waiting for that opening to appear and then being as clinical as possible with the passing could be what the Mariners try to do. But I guess we'll see as the game progresses what happens there. I think they will be helped, the Mariners, by having Jacob Farrell back. That's going to be huge for them because he's obviously got a ton of experience in this system with this team and he's very, very good at what he does. So, they sort of struggled with, I think it was it Harrison Steele in their last game, who hasn't had a huge number of minutes and really sort of struggled both defensively and on the ball as well. So, yeah, having Jacob Farrell back can only be a good thing for them. I think it does make sense in a way to keep things the same. But you would have expected Mark Jackson maybe to make some changes, but maybe we'll see that just based on how they try and progress the ball rather than in their structure per se.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you reckon the Mariners had to change their kit as well because they're in their dark blue number
Because of the
because of the kit
clash.
change?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wonder.
That's quite possible. That's very community football that the home team has to wear the away kit.
Well, it's happened so often in the A League. We're almost used to it now.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would have heard we were complaining the other day on the men's pod about Wellington wearing their half and half,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
we've seen too often as well.
Oh, it's awful. When any team does that, it never looks good because the shorts and socks are designed to go with one shirt, and then you're wearing them with the other, and it just looks just. I remember with Arsenal a few years ago wearing red shorts with their red top, and it just looked awful.
It's even more frustrating when Wellington have such good kits as well. The
Yeah.
all yellow and the all black look so good individually.
Yeah.
It's a crime of fashion to mix them up.
I think even yellow with black shorts isn't bad, but the black with the yellow shorts is just
Yeah,
a
that was
crime.
bad.
That is awful.
Foul one by Christian Theo Harris. It already looks like transitional moments
Yeah.
with the pitch being so much better. It's going to be a lot more free flowing.
Well, that's already a couple of interceptions made by Mariners players there just from pretty clumsy passes from Abdish-Ata. So,
Yeah,
like you said, it could be a transitional thing where you just look to punish the mistakes that the other team makes. And so far, yeah, Mariners have been the recipient of that. So, got a free kick here, and it's pretty far out. Probably not going to trouble much, but you never know with the likes of Brian Kautak there.
it's
He
almost
might
the
be able
same
to just.
spot that he scored from
It
last
is.
week.
Ball comes
Goes to
in,
Dan
it's
Hall in the end.
middle.
Yeah.
Again, it's that turnover there in that middle third for the Mariners. I think that could be the key area because obviously there was a lot of turnovers there in that first game. But again, that's because of the pitch more than because of the defensive work of either team. I think this is where the Mariners could shine in that they'll get those opportunities to really use their trigger press a lot more. And so far they've done that and won the ball there a few times. And the further up the pitch you're winning the ball back, the better because it means that it's a shorter route to get to the goal.
Absolutely. And you just see Jacob Farrell there on the overlap already, creating the overload on the left side. And it's a corner for the Mariners. How much of a difference do you think that late goal from Abdish-Ata in the first leg will make? Because regardless, the Mariners aren't chasing the game in any way, but the knowledge that you could have come into this game and not have to score, it would have been a little bit more, well, obviously a little bit more comfortable, but does it affect the way you play the game that much?
I don't think it would for the Mariners because their whole thing has been about scoring goals because they like to get ahead and then they are in a spot where they come to this. So they would have been looking to score early here anyway, I think. So I doubt it would have made a massive change. And even if it was just the 1 goal lead, they'd be looking to, create that sort of buffer with another goal. So I don't think it would change too much. It might just, in fact, it might actually be a little bit more fuel for the Mariners players to go, you know what, like we should have won that first game. Like that it wasn't good enough to give up a goal that late, that easily. Let's work extra hard to make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen again tonight, and really just sort of suffocate Abdish-Ata out of the game.
Another turnover in midfield, won it back.
And again from that press.
ALOO Quoll, he's in behind over the top.
He is.
Oh, poor first touch.
And that's what I was saying. I think they could look to play direct here, the Mariners, and just because you've got ALOO Qual up front, and we know how quick he is. Even Christian Theoharis can put a shift in. He's pretty
Yeah.
quick. Mikael Docker as well. So it's going to be a case, I think, of winning the ball back there and then just launching on the counter straight away, not dallying around on the ball or anything like that. And again, it's that press that they've got. It's a bit higher up the pitch than they normally do it. It's usually the deeper that the ball comes that they'll initiate that press, or even further up, not sort of in that midfield area, which is quite interesting. But it does look to be, again, a trigger press. It's when the ball's being received in certain areas that players are stepping up to it, and it's usually as the Abdish-Ata players have their back to goal as well, which makes a turnover more likely, and you're less likely then to get beaten in behind as well if the players aren't even facing the goal.
Yeah. They don't seem to be spelling a whole lot of possession together. Abdish.
No. They do look a little bit panicked.
You wouldn't say they're parking the bus though. Like they're
no.
here.
Yeah, they're trying to get the ball forwards. I think it's just a case of maybe they're just a little bit disjointed in these early minutes, and they're trying to find what works. As again, another good ball in behind there.
Yeah.
They're maybe just trying to think, right, what's going to be our best plan of attack, or maybe they've they know what their game plan is. They've not quite been able to get the pass off just yet. But yeah, like you said, they're definitely not just sitting back and holding on for this draw and trying to take it to extra time or anything like that. They're definitely looking to get forwards. It's just they haven't been able to string more than 2 or 3 passes together before being either closed down or giving it away.
Yeah. Jacob says, "G'day lads. Hello, Jacob. How are you going? What's your prediction for the game tonight?" We're both saying the Mariners will get up. I think that's probably a pretty popular one. But Abdish definitely looking to come at them here. They're not not shying away by any means.
No, they Well, I mean, it's the case for both teams is that if they want to win, they have to score, right? Like,
True.
you're not going to win by sitting back and defending all game. So they've got to do something, both teams, to create those opportunities. I think Abdish-Ata, their best bet might be to try and do similar sort of things to what they did in the first leg, which was to really attack the half spaces. There was a lot of space left there simply because of the fact that they were playing with a back three, and the fullbacks were staying quite wide, which obviously left just that one centre back there, and there was a lot of space either side of him.
Yeah.
But whether the Mariners sit a little bit more narrow this game, and it looks like out of possession they do sort of keep a back four. Storm Roux comes back in from the midfield into that right back position to sort of keep things a little bit more spread out, but without sacrificing numbers. And because that's where Abdish-Ata were the most threatening, was getting into those areas just in front of the defense, and then it was players had to overcommit because you only have 3 at the back, so somebody's got to make the challenge, and that's where they were finding most of their success in the first leg. Although, of course, as we know, there weren't a huge number of chances from either team really, but
yeah. Jacob says, "You'd think the Mariners, but never know how something like the Torres situation can rock the squad." Of course, yeah. I mean, obviously there's a big story there outside of football, but one of their best players is removed now, and they have to deal with that for probably the rest of the season. And here comes ALOO Qual 1-on-1 with the keeper. Oh, that's a creative challenge.
If it works, it works.
He's already looking to get a few opportunities here, ALOO Qual, and he looks to have the pace advantage on that direct opponent as well.
Yeah, he's even with, I mean, in that one in particular, he was sitting very, very deep, that last defender, and was still beaten to the ball by Qual. So yeah, it's definitely going to look to use his pace. But so far, Qual's first touch hasn't been fantastic on the couple of chances he's had, and that's what slowed him down. So if he can, make sure that that's under control and it puts him in the best position to get a shot off, then that could be the way to go for the Mariners. And it certainly seems like Mark Jackson thinks that, because that's how the players have been going about things so far.
What do you make of the revolving door of Mariners strikers? You got ALOO Qual, Ryan Edmondson, Jing Reese. Obviously, they occupy slightly different profiles, which you're better to speak to than I am, but it doesn't feel like they've found one settled option.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's they've not found one settled option or that they've just got a bunch of system players.
Right.
In that, you can use them all slightly differently depending on how you want to play. So like last week we saw Ryan Edmondson in the side instead of ALOO Qual, and Edmondson, as we've said, plays a bit deeper. He does still have good pace and good strength and things like that, but he is more, you're going to use him more in build up and things like that. And then obviously he wasn't used much because nobody could build up anything on that pitch anyway. So it was a little bit wasted, but I think it's a case of that they've got a few solid strikers, but they're all very system players, and that's where it can actually be quite a struggle, because the striker is the sort of player, if you've got a good one, you can build a team around them, right? Because you just play to their strengths. That's what City did for so long with McLaren, and in some ways what Victory have done this year with Fornaroli. So it can be difficult when you've not got necessarily that one striker who's going to set the league alight, and you've got to sort of rotate 3 or 4 through that position depending on the opposition you're up against. But I mean, the Mariners so far haven't really, it's not really had a massive effect on them, because you've had other players chip in. You've had Josh Nisbet creating chances no matter what anyway, and yeah, their good performances speak to the fact that it doesn't seem to matter who's up front, in that they will more often than not be in a game and probably win it too.
Yeah, and figure out a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, just to sidestep a little bit while this game gets into the swing of things, an interesting day, Jacob, for the Brisbane Roar. Not often do you re-sign 2 goalkeepers in the same day. Macklin Freak to a 2-year deal and Matty Acton to 1, I believe. I think, look, first of all, the pattern of a lot of young signings in the last couple of days, in addition to a lot of the news, particularly with Adelaide United hearing that some young players are going away, it's encouraging. And I'll just bring up my little question tab here. What do you make of all the recent transfer attention on young Australians? Because we've seen a pattern over the last 18 months, particularly after the success of both national teams at World Cups. A lot more attention has been on Australians as a floated ball is just dealt with by the Central Coast Mariners. But, the players are going away, and some of them are not on contract, so the clubs aren't getting money for them, particularly in Adelaide United's case, as you're familiar with. But a player like Macklin Freak is the perfect example of still a young player. He's 25, but he's youngish, and getting them on contracts and making sure that if they do get attention from overseas, which is looking like is happening a lot more now that they get some money for them as well.
Yeah, and with Macklin Freak, didn't he just clean sweep at the Roar's annual awards as well? I think he won.
Did he? I missed that.
I think so. I think he won Players Player, Best Player, and something else as well. So, he's earned some accolades there as well, which just is extra incentive for the club to keep him on. And it sort of goes to what Antonis and I were discussing in the group chat over the last couple of days about talent identification is one thing, but then making sure that you're keeping the talented players, at the club for as long as possible. So, like you said, Lockie, you can benefit from getting a transfer fee in there. And you did mention Adelaide United, and that's who I'll probably talk about, because I've got the sort of understanding of them the most of all the clubs. But in recent days, the news has been Musa Toure will be looking to go because he's off contract, and the sale today of Giuseppe Bovalina to Vancouver over in the MLS. And it's a case of, especially with Bovalina, I think it's being reported 200,000. Was it Canadian or US dollars? I can't remember which
US,
one.
Yeah.
US dollars, which is not a lot for a football player nowadays, and especially one with a lot of potential. And long-time listeners of the podcast will know how much I rate Bovalina as a player with my outlandish comparison to Ben White a few weeks back. But no, he's a very talented player, and 200,000, it seems like a bit of a steal. But the problem is that that's what happens in a league where a lot of the players are on short-term contracts, is that the club either takes a relatively small amount but gets something, or the player just leaves for free at the end of their contract anyway. And, like you mentioned with Macklin Freak, maybe we're starting to see this case of clubs going, well, hang on, teams like the Mariners, teams like Adelaide have been making money from their players. Maybe we need to be getting these talented players on longer contracts so that when they do attract that attention, we're not necessarily losing out. We've got a little bit of leverage then in negotiations as well, as Abdish-Ata launched an attack down the wing there, which is cleared for a corner. Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely a case of clubs having to take it upon themselves, but also being able to sell it to the players. Because as a young player, you can understand them wanting to make that big move that they think is going to really elevate their career, and they're going to be eager to do it. I think it's the clubs have to step in and go, yeah, but if you stick with us, look at where your career can go if you do that. If you go out too early, you, you know, it could just end in a blaze of glory sort of thing, and you end up nowhere, or you stay just even 1 extra year, 2 extra years with us, develop better. A lot of clubs now have good connections overseas with other places. Adelaide have just signed an agreement with PSV over in the Netherlands, for instance, and go, look, this is what happens when players stay versus this is what happens when players leave too early. And maybe it's best for everybody involved if you sign a little bit of a longer contract. It's stability then. If you get an injury, you know that you can come back and you'll still be on contract and you still have a shot at a starting position. It means that if we have to at the end of the season, you've got a job next year, sort of thing. It gives you time to develop, and then it also benefits the club because they're keeping their talented young players, helping them develop, and then also earning the money when they are inevitably sold on. But the big issue is going to be how that sort of idea, these longer contracts, works with a salary capped league. Because the reality of it is that it is a salary capped league. And yes, there's a lot of ways around it with things like designated players, marquees, homegrown players, scholarships, all that. But for longer term contracts, you're eating into a chunk of your future potential in terms of, being able to spend
You're
money
limiting
on
your
players.
adaptability.
Yeah, exactly. If something doesn't pan out, you've got them on the books for another couple of seasons. There's no interclub transfers in the A League either, which is another thing that doesn't help.
Yep.
So it's a big risk, but that's where I think doing it with your young players, the ones who you have identified have potential, not doing it with every young player, but the ones you go, I reckon that there's something there, and either they'll turn out to be a first team player, or we reckon that they'll end up overseas. Going to them and saying, let's get you on a deal where we can both benefit from it. That's going to be big, because the risk can be outweighed by the chance to make an extra couple of million on their transfer down the line, sort of thing.
And I think it'll be more than that. I think we're heading in that direction. And nothing that we're saying is news to A-League clubs either. But the reason that we're seeing all these players leave for free or low fees is because these decisions have to be made years in advance. And in this situation now, it's like you look at Bobolina, like a couple of years ago, particularly the World Cups, because I think that is a milestone that changed things a lot in terms of the attention on Australians. It wasn't the same situation. It was a significantly bigger risk to sign those players on for longer deals. So yes, salary cap doesn't help because you're limiting your ability to move things around and leave choices for yourself later down the line. Domestic transfer system is a big one. The good news on that front is James Johnson, CEO of FA, is big on that. So he's pushing for a DTS, particularly with the Australian Championship coming in soon as well. We'll get to that later. But that will help. Obviously clubs like Melbourne City, Melbourne Victory, Sydney FC, the Wanderers, there are all these kind of destination clubs. Probably not the Wanderers at the moment, but the destination clubs for these players, particularly, of course, Melbourne City with the City Football Group links as well. Players want to go there particularly for the link overseas and try to make that transition a little bit easier for themselves. So if players are going to go there, then hopefully a DTS would help them be rewarded, because the City Football Group will be willing to spend money on, good players and in transfer fees, not just wages. So I think it's on its way up.
But and the big criticism that happens is always that those clubs, those bigger clubs with more money, are just going to buy the best players from the other clubs. And that's probably not going to happen for a couple of reasons. Is number one, if they wanted them, they'd get them anyway. Because like I said, it's short-term contracts. If they've got the money to splash on the wages, players will just move where they're going to get paid more. And we see that happen a lot with the number of players that have been a bunch of clubs throughout their career, because they're just going to go wherever earns them the most money, wherever they feel best, or wherever they want to live. So there's already sort of that thing of the bigger clubs are going to get the players they want anyway. I think it enables the smaller clubs to benefit from, rather than in a lot of cases having players leave as free agents, they're now at least getting a little bit of money from it, sort of thing, from the rivals. And then it does, it's not like Victory and Sydney and stuff are just going to have unlimited money. It's going to be, that's a
No foul.
no foul on that. That's an interesting decision there. It looked like he got completely tripped
He
up.
seemed to hop up pretty quick.
He did. Probably, yeah, because it wasn't called a foul. He had to get back and defend.
We don't always see that happen though.
Yeah.
But sorry, yeah, continue.
But yeah, so yeah, the big criticism, I don't think it makes sense in isolation, but I think given just sort of the situation that Australian football's in anyway, it sort of already happens. So I don't think it's as big a blow as a lot of the skeptics seem to think it might be.
Yeah. Obviously, the salary cap is the big one, right? That limits their ability. If players get to a certain level, they don't expect more money. And if they can't get it because of salary cap issues, then they'll go to other places, which limits, City's ability to dominate the league, which is very important because we don't want that.
Yeah. But even with the basically unlimited resources, now some of the best facilities in the league, you're seeing the likes of teams like the Mariners that are doing the best at the moment because of the smart decisions that they're making in their footballing department, the sort of football they're playing. So it's not even a guaranteed, even if City did have free reign, that they'd be any good anyway.
True, but also the Mariners have had this peak of 2 years after a pretty long downturn.
That's true.
Whereas the City have had 10 years in a row of making finals. So with those resources, I think they do guarantee you a ceiling at 80% of the time. And sure, they haven't probably got the championship trophies at least that they would have hoped for. They've got a few premierships in there, but definitely since like a sustained level of like minimum success being finals is what it gives them, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. But Jacob you're right. We don't want people dominating.
Yeah, well, maybe City fans do.
Yeah.
Jacob says, good to lock in Macklin Freak because he is so important to us and we could potentially get a fee as well. Yeah, absolutely. And, he's interesting because he's a very athletic goalkeeper, but he's also very good on the ball. So
yeah,
I think he's prime for a coach that loves that kind of patient build-up play because he's really good with his feet and can be pretty versatile in that area as well.
Yeah, we're seeing keepers now being sort of used almost as a third centre back when you've got two at the back in possession, sort of standing up between the two centre backs. So, it's just an advantage nowadays in every position to have a player who's good with the ball at their feet. The way that football's being played now, it's so important to have a good passer and stuff like that. So.
If I can make a comparison to the dub as well, Melbourne City keeper, I forget her first name, but Prue, they lost her in January, Melbourne City. But what Daria Vidicic was doing with her is they were playing a four in the back out of possession. And when they got the ball, one of their defenders, it would have been Taylor Otto, stepped up into midfield and Prue would step up literally into a left centre-back position.
Yeah.
They'd leave the goal completely open and they were just playing with 11 field players. Like they weren't even trying to pretend that she was a goalkeeper. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's the sort of thing, honestly, I think I could see the likes of Giancarlo Italiano trying to adopt for the Phoenix next year. We've seen Finn Sermon stepping up from that centre-back position into the midfield already anyway. If all that takes is Paulson then stepping up as well to get another player going upper level into the midfield. And he's the sort of coach that is always looking to tweak things around and see what works. Mark Jackson's another one as well.
I feel like Italiano is also so not confident because he's still a very humble guy, but he has a lot of belief in himself that he wouldn't really care what anyone else thinks if he sends his goalie to the halfway line. If he believes it's going to work, then he'll do it. So I think that'll be great.
And it's a case of if the players believe it's going to work as well. If he can get them buying into it and going, yeah, this is a great idea, they will do it and they will do it to the best of their ability, which is what he's managed to do at the Phoenix so far this season.
Well, we've just ticked over the 25-minute mark in the game. No really clear chances for the Mariners. The best was probably a corner floated in from Abdish that never really got solid connection at the far post. So not a whole lot in the ways of chances, but Abdish definitely being able to play through the Mariners a little bit at times, and they definitely won't go down easy.
No, I think that is a case of here the Mariners press just getting a little bit stretched in the midfield. There's a lot of space, with Nisbet sort of floating around a little bit more. There's less structure in the center of the park for the Mariners tonight. And Abdish-Ata, like you said, can sort of play through them a little bit easier than perhaps the Mariners would have liked. I also think that Qual hasn't been doing as much up front as maybe we'd have liked to see. There's not been a huge amount of off-ball movement from him. He's sort of just trotting around out there, not really making that move to beat his man or make a run in behind like he was doing early on, which was working quite well for them. It's sort of that lack of instinct almost from him, which is a bit strange to see.
Jacob says if he ever moves out of Australia, this is Macklin Freak again. I think Japan would be a great place for him to go. What makes Japan the standout for you, Jacob? Because obviously Asia, it's interesting. It's never really been seen. Like obviously the dream for Australian players is to go to Europe, right? But more and more Asia is kind of coming into the fold. We saw Alexander Popovich is probably the biggest name young Australian that's gone over to Korea or Japan, which are the two other big East Asian countries. Of course, we have a couple in Saudi Arabia now as well. But, you know, a very robust pyramid, a very deep player base as well, a very competitive environment. I've been keeping tabs on it a little bit with, Yokohama, all the Australians managers going through there. So it's a good quality of football. And, Mitch Langerak has made a really big career over there as a goalkeeper as well. So it's definitely an option.
And what Stefan Walk said about it as well from his stuff on the podcast, he loved it over there. You know, there's one that really stood out to me about how, you know, in Adelaide he could just go around for a walk and nobody would bother him because either they wouldn't know him or they'd be like, oh, that's Stefan Walk, but they wouldn't like bother going up to him. But in Japan, it's like a hero worship for the players. he's like 2 weeks after he got there, and there were people like stopping him on the street for photos and stuff. It's like this. It almost makes you feel like that sort of superstar that you've, I guess, been dreaming of, maybe, and that can be a little bit enticing to have that recognition attached to your ability as a footballer.
I really liked Mitch Duke's comments when he went on the Football Friends show saying he's been in Japan like 6 or 7 years or something, and he hasn't learned how to speak Japanese.
Oh, that's great. That's just like, that's the other thing as well is I think a bit that's not spoken about a lot with football transfers and going overseas is language barrier is such a huge thing. And you know, for Stefan Mork, he was lucky to be able to go to a club with Mitch Duke, who also spoke English, and there was I think a few other players there that spoke English, so they were sort of able to form that bond there and communicate as a group in that way. And we saw it with Mohamed Touré when he went to France. He took Yaya Doucouré along with him. That's something, especially for a young player, to go to not only a new environment but a place where they don't speak the same language as you. You're not going to necessarily understand things. That's something that's, I don't think, spoken about enough in terms of why some players perhaps don't pan out quite as well as some predict, because it can be, you know, a big shock to not be able to understand literally anything that's going on around you.
Now, just for clarity, do you reckon I changed the scoreboard to 1-1?
Ooh,
that is the score after
just
first
show
break.
the aggregate score.
Let's go aggregate score. I guess it doesn't really matter. They're even and there's no away goals, so no real impact, but just to be safe. Jacob says feel like his ball playing ability could really thrive over there. Yes, agree. Oh, another dangerous free kick from Abdish. It's been the set pieces that have been the most dangerous, really, for the Mariners so far. Chris says Japan's focus on technical ability. I remember a raw, physical Mitchell Duke being converted to a left back in his initial stint in J League. That's interesting. I haven't heard about that, to be fair, but I believe you. The aim of this change in position was to develop his first touch and technical skill on the ball. So you're saying it was a developmental thing. That's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that has always been the criticism of Australian football, hasn't it? Is that it's maybe not technically up to par with other leagues. But I think definitely, at least this season, we've seen a massive shift in that opinion. And with the likes of Mark Jackson, with the likes of Giancarlo Italiano coming in, and players like Nisbet, Arslan, Zach Clough, having, Uli Davila, Daniel Pena having these fantastic seasons.
Can I make an interesting observation before you move on from that?
Yeah, go for it.
Only one of those names you just listed was Australian.
Yes, that's true. That is true. But I think that's showing that there is a change in the style of football that looking to play here. In that we've got 4 or 5 players in those central midfield positions who are technically very, very gifted players. And, maybe in seasons past, you'd have talked about 1 or 2 of them. I think it's a case of teams identifying that this is the sort of style of play that we're going to need to be playing now. And yes, okay, only one of those is Australian, but, you've got to start somewhere. And you bring in those sorts of players, and that rubs off on the youngsters. And you've seen it with how many different styles of football have been played in Australia, in terms of that started with bringing in players who fit a sort of style that the club wanted to play with the Roar. It was the likes of Thomas Broich would come in, and then you saw the rest of the playing group sort of adopt things there. With Adelaide, when they won the championship, it was that sort of Spanish possession-based football, that came in with the likes of Isaias, and sort of almost you can still see remnants of it today. It's those sorts of things where, yes, okay, only one of them's Australian, but that will change with time, because it's the way that football's heading, and Australia is starting to catch up with the rest of the world in that regard. And I think that perhaps the criticisms of
that is a great save from Daniel Vukovic.
Very good save. Fantastic. That was completely unsighted for him as well until about
didn't see it until late, low down to his left. A little bit wider, and that's probably ending up in the bottom corner. Mariners really on the worst of it.
They are. They've not been able to keep possession for any length of time so far, and it's just been sloppiness. They don't look to be on the same wavelength. A lot of their players, passes going astray, just running into cul-de-sacs almost, where you just close down immediately. It seems very. It's gone away from that fluidity they had for the first 10 minutes, where they were attacking quite well, getting balls in behind, and now they're sort of just holding on a little bit as Abdish-Ata look to attack. And Abdish-Ata, again, that shot, it's coming from the half space. He's cut back inside of the fullback to get into the half space and take that shot. So, yeah, that's definitely an area of concern for the Mariners, and how they're going to combat that and try and stop those opportunities, that space opening up in that area, because so far it's that's where they've struggled the most, and that's where Abdish-Ata have looked to target them. And it's this sort of stuff as well here, that pass just then from Vukovic. What's the intention there? It's a sloppy passage of play ending with an Abdish-Ata free kick, but the first pass, it was not good enough in the first place, and you're just passing it to a player who's going to be closed down immediately.
The free kick where the referee waits a little while, hasn't made a decision, and then the handball to slow it down.
Yeah, classic.
Force them to make a decision. Of course, I mentioned the Australian link to Yokohama. They play their Asian Champions League semi-final tonight as well. They kick off in about 20 minutes. I believe they're 1 goal down to Ulsan Hyundai in Korean team.
Oh, right, okay.
So Harry Kewell, of course, over there at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Evan says, who's going to win? We think the Mariners, but it's been a struggle the first 35 minutes here. Abdish definitely with the better of the chances. Another near post run there is deflected behind for a corner. Who's that? Is that Tap who's got a knock to the head potentially?
Looks like it. It's one of these things where it does feel like the Mariners are just holding on at the moment.
Oof, a little friendly fire with ALOO there.
Yeah.
But they'll reload Abdish-Ata. Another near post run, same thing. Dealt with better this case, and a free kick won by Christian Theoharis. If I can go back to your point about the trend of technical Australian players, it's interesting that you have that much optimism before it, because a big takeaway from the under-23 Asian Cup is that that was the kind of thing we were lacking, and a pretty uninspiring performance from the Ollie Roos. 0 games won, 0 goals scored, and just 2 points I think they conceded, and obviously the missed penalty as well. So I said on the podcast last week actually, after the first game, they look really comfortable on the ball, which is good because it sets you up to dominate games, but does feel like a very similar story to what we were talking about with the senior team at the Senior Asian Cup with the Socceroos, where it's all well and good to have all this possession, but when we get into the final third, we don't seem to have many game-breaking ideas.
But how much of that is the players lacking the talent or ability, and how much of that is, the coaching?
Yeah, true. I don't know.
So, I do believe that there are players who have the quality to be the sort of technical, skilled footballers that, teams are looking to have. But when it comes to international football, coaches are going to coach in different ways and do different things. And it might not be what how clubs would look to use them and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it might be a case of it's not necessarily doom and gloom because none of the players are capable of making that final third pass. I think it might be a case of maybe the coaching playing it a little bit safe, playing for possession and control over trying to create decent chances and really embracing the talent that a lot of those young players have.
And it's something that Ernie Merrick, of course, former coach of the Melbourne Victory, has been tasked with solving at Football Australia. He was hired as the chief football officer. Theo Hara, stinky ball, a little bit too much on it though, and it runs away. So yes, Ernie Merrick is at the helm at Football Australia. I believe there's already work being done. There's a report to be coming out in the next few months, I believe James Johnson alluded to. So
yeah,
that's going to be big to see. I don't know if it'll be like a 10-year strategic plan or something like that. But
well, I mean, Chris has just commented saying that Football Australia curriculum has been in place for 10 plus years. So the under 23 setup haven't been completely educated under such a curriculum.
Yeah, so you have the 10-year the curriculum, but then you also have I'm going to forget the names, but they released something else, the 10 point something about 10, maybe a 10-point plan, something like that. That anyway, they've tried to shift directions a couple of times now, and I think the appointment of Ernie Merrick was to try and give some stability perhaps in one direction, but we can't seem to pick one direction and stay with it. Changing your full starting 11 every game in a tournament can't help. No, Jacob, you're right. It can't help. But I agree with you, Jacob. I think that you look at the squads that we've put out to these tournaments recently, this is a better squad. Like even with no Nesta, even with all the European absences we had, the player quality is there. And look, maybe that quality wasn't all in the final third, but they should be performing better than that. And even if you're rotating a little bit, they've planned. They've had a good run the last 18 months. They've gotten used to playing with each other in different ways. I think it was a well below par performance.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't watch a huge amount of the games, but by the sounds of things, it wasn't all completely hopeless. I did read some good things about, Mohamed Toure and his ability to make things happen, both on and off the ball with his movement. And we touched on a couple of players in a podcast recently as well that had some good moments. I think it's a case of just trying to get it all together, and I do think the coaching is a big part of it. And I know that Vidmar's had his criticisms in that role with the under 23s. And a big thing for them obviously is qualifying for the Olympics, which they've failed to do. So there's a lot of people calling for action to be taken in that regard to his position. I do think that a lot of it was coaching, and that it's sort of the emphasis on controlling the game over trying to win the game perhaps worked against them a little bit.
Yeah, it does feel like perhaps the focus is on the build-up play, on the defensive systems and rest defense, those kind of things, all those theories that ensure you don't lose games. But
well, and I mean, they defended relatively well.
They did. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. And they controlled the ball really well in possession.
Yeah. It's just, could they have won those games by attacking a bit more, And the answer is probably yes.
Lachlan says, how are you guys watching this? We do have a 10-play stream up on the sides that I'm really hoping you guys can't hear. Otherwise I might be in trouble. But I think I've done my sliders correctly. We're listening to the broadcast over separately and talking to you as well. Mikael Docker picks up a yellow card.
What's that for then?
I hope we're getting a replay on that. Nope. Oh well. Mecca Docker's got a yellow card. Ooh. Max Ballard cops a very heavy one.
That was a very, very heavy one.
Was that studs?
I didn't get a great view of it. Ref's given a yellow.
Oh, I just missed it again. No pause, rewind. Oh, that's studs on the top of the foot.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't look good, does it? Well, that reverse angle is especially bad.
Yeah, no, that is studs to the top of the foot. No VAR in the AFC Cup, but I think
No.
if we were in the A-League, we know what's happening right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to talk about European football too much, but Arsenal-Chelsea this morning with the Jackson challenge on Tomiyasu, which was
true. That was the same one.
That was quite similar to that, and
maybe top of the foot is looked at differently to ankle.
Quite possibly. In that you're more likely to get it while challenging for the ball than the ankle, but I think that's the other thing. Little gripe that I have as well with people trying to justify different things, and they always go, "Oh, but he got the ball," and it's like that's not you can't, like, that doesn't absolve you from breaking a guy's leg, you know.
It's
and that really annoys me. Sorry, just to get that out, that really annoys me when
it annoys me too.
But he got the ball, and it's like, so if I kick the ball away and punch someone in the face, that's fine because I got the ball. Like, that's not how it works, guys.
Lachlan says I went to 10 play, but it won't work. It is a notoriously fickle platform. As is Paramount Plus. Try using different browser. Make sure you're logged in. Just, maybe a couple of different devices and try your luck. No firm strategy there, unfortunately.
I find it tends to work best on my phone. Fewest issues on my phone than on browsers. But just got to try out a bunch of different stuff.
All right. Well, Max Ballard is up and seems to be running okay. The action continues. We're in the 44th minute now, approaching the end of the first half, which hopefully means Paletti's not too far away as well.
It'd be good to have an extra person here. They can talk us through the naming of their new cat as well.
Yes, that's a good one, actually. Oh, that's well intercepted from Nisbet there. And long straight away from Vukovic. Oh, Qual. Needed to release it earlier. But here goes Storm Roo bombing down the right-hand side.
Getting down there, yeah. Interestingly, now just a back two for the Mariners in possession as well. Fowler's stepped up into the midfield.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't remember when that change happened exactly. If that's coincided now with this period of sort of control and possession that the Mariners have had for the last few minutes, or if that's a little bit of an earlier thing that's just starting to pay off for them. But that's a very good sequence of play. It didn't pan out, and the ball's back with Abdish-Ata, but getting the ball into the midfield, quick turn and play out wide where your players are in space is going to serve the Mariners well, I think, so far. And just struggling really to get into the game. I think both sides, obviously Abdish-Ata with probably the better of the chances, and but Vukovic staying strong. Mariners defending well from set pieces, which you'd expect with some of the big tool bodies that they've got in the box.
Yep, Jacob, I have seen your question about the NSD. We will get to that at half time. Once these 3 minutes of stoppage time have elapsed, we are down through one. As we, I don't know, perhaps that move it to just a little more control in midfield. Those extra numbers, they're trying to create perhaps more transitional moments, as you said, in those dangerous areas. But Josh Nisbet, here we go, dropping deep and getting on the ball. This is what we like from him.
That's why he's been so good this season. One of those players where the earlier
Docker. Left foot. That's the best chance for the Mariners, but a tame finish
It
in the end.
is. But it's a bit telling that it's their best chance of the game 47 minutes into it.
Yes.
So, there's definitely a lot of work to do for the Mariners into the second half because, like we said, somebody's got to score to win this. You're not going to win it by drawing. So,
And of course, they've got a very important game on the weekend, the F3 derby against the Newcastle Jets, that could win or lose them the premiership race. Of course, we know they have that game against Adelaide next Wednesday, but doesn't take away from the importance of the weekend. And, for a Newcastle Jets fan, you're definitely hoping that this one goes the distance.
yeah, tired legs to run it. And even though the Jets season is well and truly finished and has been for a little while now, it's one of those games where you've at least got something to fight for, and that it's a rivalry match, and the players will be up for it, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And they'll be, as I said a couple of days ago, the only team in the league with no losses in their last 4 games. So they're the informed team in the comp, the Newcastle Jets.
But now we've backed them. It's like Perth.
Exactly.
They're gonna struggle now. So
let's not reminisce on our comments over Perth Globe.
You were the ringleader of that, so
everyone came along with me. Looked a genius when they started doing well, and then a fool when they hit the bottom of the table and won the Woody Spoon. Well, that's just how it goes. Competitive balance, right?
That's right.
As we get to half time of the second leg of the interzonal final of the AFC Cup, it is Central Coast Mariners nil, Abdish-Ata Kant nil, 1-1 on aggregate, still in the balance. But let's take a little bit of a break from the A-League teams. And, of course, more news out of today. This came courtesy of Joey Lynch, a leak for the potential name of the NST to be the Australian Championship. What are your first impressions of that name, Jacob?
I do like it, just because it's a little bit English, having the second division called the Championship. But I think it makes sense. A lot of people are calling for the A2 League, but there's no actual link between the NST and the A-League yet.
At all.
So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Not even owned by the same entity.
No, I saw some people saying that they would just call it the National Premier League and then change the NPL names to something else, which seemed like just a lot of work for no real gain. I think championship sounds good. It's nice and simple to say, and it sounds football-y as well. It's not something silly,
Yeah, people were talking about like a confusion between, obviously we call the winner of the final series the champions, and winning the championship, and that kind of like, I don't think that's too big an issue.
Because it's going to be an A-League team that wins the A-League championship, and it's going to be an NST team that wins that championship. You're not going to confuse,
They seem to manage okay in England.
They do. Well, give me a team that's playing in the NST. You're not going to hear them winning the champion. Yeah, you're not going to hear South Melbourne wins the championship and go, "Oh, they won the A-League."
Look, I think it's good. I don't mind it, to be honest. I do like the idea of A-League 2 when we get to a connected pyramid. And Jacob, this will lead into your question, but it'll just be known as the championship in Australia. We can just drop that Australian bit on it when we're talking about it locally. I think it's all right. Everyone will understand its purpose. I think, global football fans kind of recognise the term championship in terms of competition as the second division.
Yeah.
I think it works fine.
And I think there are bigger things to worry about than the name as well.
we like worrying about everything, though.
That's true. That's true.
So Jacob's question was, how, if and when the A-League and NSD implement promotion and relegation, will they move one of the seasons? Do you do it month by month over a few years, or how do you manage it? And it's a very interesting question. We're obviously a long way away from this, but it has to happen, in my opinion, eventually, if we want a fully flourishing footballing ecosystem in Australia. I think the first question you have to answer is, do you go to winter or do you go to summer? I think it has to be summer. I think that's been proven ever since the old NSL switched to the summer series. The benefits there. We have to be realistic about the sporting market that we live in. And, we went through this year, Jacob. We started our podcast, of course, in October when most of the winter sports had finished. and
Yeah.
doing all of the analytical work, comparing to other sport podcasts in Australia, we kind of knew where we sat. And then all of a sudden, when the new year rolled around and all the AFL and NRL and all of those kinds of things started to pop up, you go, oh, okay, I remember how football sits in the whole levels of things. So
Yeah.
I think we are a summer sports, at least at the professional stage. So yes, I think that's kind of where we have to go. And just before you answer, we got a comment in here from Coast Watch Football as well. He says, "Hey guys, tuning in live from Industry Group Stadium. Just jumping in the chat to say g'day, hello to
Love
you.
that. Love the
I've been
dedication.
loving your watch-alongs as well. We've been
Yeah.
taking a lot of inspiration from those. So thank you for saying hello, and I hope you're enjoying the game. But yes, NST, summer or winter?"
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it has to be summer. Not just because of the sporting hierarchy, but also things like venue
Yep.
availability, especially in those eastern states where you've got your rugby league teams that use a lot of suburban grounds and things like that, which it's likely the NST teams will want to use as well. That's going to be a huge part, and you want to keep pitches in a condition that they're playable, not like the issues we've seen with Suncorp this season, for instance. So yeah, venue availability is a big reason why it would probably be a move to summer. It also then aligns with the global football calendar as well.
Yes. Which more and more Asian countries are doing.
Yeah.
I believe it is Japan, and people can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but they have decided on a transition to summer. So that'll actually be a good test case if in, I think it's around 8 years when the A-League licenses run out, which is kind of around probably the earliest time we could do this. It'll be a good test case by then to see how Japan have done it. I imagine it'll probably be 1 year you cut 3 months off, then the next year you cut another 3 months off to get the championship. And I'm trying to call it championship now instead of NST. I don't know whether I should or not. But trying to get the championship into summer, maybe you do it gradually over 2 years rather than just... Because you couldn't do back-to-back seasons, could you?
Probably not. Unless it's a case of, are these clubs going to be running NPL sides, in which case you just have them on the NPL side, and then the championship side have to sit out, have an extra long off season, and then just get started in the summer. Might be an option.
Could be.
Or shorten NPL season, or I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be strange to see if it happens. How it happens.
Yeah, maybe you just go maybe a month or two early and have a shortened season or something like that. So you have too many off seasons 1 year, something like that.
I think so.
But yes, we're getting very far ahead of ourselves at the moment. Of course, we're not too far away. The request for proposal phase for the 2 or 4 extra teams in the championship have closed. I can tell you that. That was Friday a week and a half ago was the deadline for that. So those in Football Australia will now complete the rest of that process privately. And I believe the completion phase is set for June of this year. So in a couple of months, we will know 2 or 4 other teams to be debuting in the championship. That hasn't been confirmed as well, by the way. Maybe it's just a placeholder. But
that was just literally just a trademark application or something, wasn't it?
It was. Maybe they've made 7 or 8 others and we only found one, and they're keeping their options open, but who knows? Yeah. Jacob says 100% has to be summer. Imagine all the people playing local football who couldn't attend games. Yeah, that's another
that's a
big
good point.
aspect to it as well.
And with a lot of these clubs being community clubs as well, it'd be difficult because there's a lot of volunteers involved in it and stuff like that. And then when you'd have to sacrifice potentially the quality of your local club for the second division side because you need the people to work that game day rather than doing the other. It would be.
And of course, you got the extended school holidays over summer, which we don't have the biggest crowds compared to other sporting codes in the world. So every little percentage increase is worth consideration for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jacob, while you're here as well, we talked about some transfers a little bit earlier, but also another big rumour that came out was potentially Thomas Waddingham to Tottenham Hotspur. Apparently, a number of Premier League clubs, a number of German clubs, including Bayern Munich as well, are after him. And I'll admit, Jacob, I was a little bit surprised when I heard this news. Like, obviously, he's a young Australian striker that's getting time in the A-League, which we don't have a lot of. But he hasn't exactly lit up the A-League this year. So
No.
those kind of links to me did come as a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, it was a bit out of left field. I don't know if there's a lot of merit to this, or if it's agents, sort of playing the field and seeing if it does attract any interest from
It's a
people.
lot of names to throw out there, though.
They're very, very big names to throw out there, saying the likes of Tottenham. I think that if you're gonna pick a big club to just throw out there to see what happens, for an Australian player, Tottenham probably makes the most sense, simply because of the fact that Ange is there at the moment.
See, but does it though? Because are you going to go where I'm going?
I think so, yeah.
So the thing is, since Ange has left Australia, the only Australian player that he has brought into his teams was Aaron Moy on a free transfer to Celtic. So he's chosen to stay clear of Australians in terms of his playing stock.
Yeah, I don't know. But very outlandish rumors to come out about somebody who's got 6 or 7 goal contributions this season, which it's an okay return, but for a striker, you probably want a little bit more. And I don't know where this has come from. Where on earth has
Jacob says, how many young Aussies have scored that many goals in their first pro season? And it's a valid point, but I'd argue that has a lot more to do with Australia's trust in young strikers. So, look, absolutely, he's a talent. I'm not arguing that. I just didn't think there would be that much interest, but it's great for him. And, if he can head over to Tottenham with Ange, Postecoglou can make sure that we've got a good striker coming through for the national team. That would be great, because until we get some regular guy up there scoring a lot of goals, and no discredit to Mitchell Duke as well. He's done a tremendous job. But, ever since Timmy Cahill retired, there's always been that question of who's going to score the goals for the Socceroos.
Yeah. If this is true and does have merit, then best of luck to him, because that's a massive jump to make. And I mean, if this is true, it means somebody has seen something in there, that there is a quality player. A Premier League club is not going to sign somebody just on a whim. They'll have looked at his game, analysed it for hours and hours and hours on end to come to that conclusion. So if there is any truth to it, then that's pretty big, and I think says a lot about the potential that he might have as a player.
Straight swap for Harry Kane.
He's not at Tottenham anymore.
Well, no, that's what I mean, though. Like, you lose a world-class striker.
Okay. I mean, maybe he becomes Australia's Harry Kane. That'd be one hell of a story, hey?
Well, we have talked a lot about the rotating door of players, but additional news has come with the merry-go-round of coaches. There was an article today, I believe it was Marco Monteverde, suggesting that talks are continuing to stall between Popovic and Melbourne Victory. I believe he was saying that the price that Popovic has put out there, the club is not agreeing to. Whether that's legitimate or it's just perhaps they're just trying to create a little bit of friction because perhaps one or both of these parties want to go separate ways, who knows. But it looks like Popovic is potentially going out the door at the end of the season. And then the question of who replaces him at Melbourne Victory, where does he go? He's been linked to the Wanderers, I believe. I know we've called multiple times that Marco Rudan probably shouldn't be there next year, but he does have a 3-year contract. So again, who knows in that department?
Yeah. That's the other, like you said, we spoke about rotating doors of players. It does happen with coaches a lot in this league as well, where they just sort of bounce around from club to club. Seen some interesting names attached to potentially taking that job. Robbie Fowler is certainly not who any of us, I think, would have expected to see supposedly interested in that gig. But who knows what this is the thing with all of this stuff, is it's a lot of speculation, and we just cannot know until it happens. And then we're all left scrambling to try and figure out why and stuff like that. So it would be great to be able to say this is definitely happening and we know it for sure. But yeah.
But I mean, at least we haven't really had in the A-League these kind of, Fabrizio rumors of players
Yeah,
going. So
that's
it's good
true.
to talk about. It's good
It is.
conversation.
It is good. And another gripe. So I had my one about touching the ball
Yeah,
in a
again, the
foul.
ball.
Twitter has absolutely ruined the beauty of football transfers because it used to be like deadline day would come around and the rumors would just be passed word of mouth almost sort of stuff, and there was an excitement. They used to do the live news broadcasts outside of stadiums about
Yeah.
who's being signed. It's lost that magic now that Fabrizio Romano just goes, yeah, this is happening. Everyone's like, ah. So that's my second little mini
Little
rant
gripe.
there. Yeah.
Fair enough. You know what else we're missing from Industry Group Stadium tonight? The sauce bottles.
We are missing the
Too
sauce bottles.
windy in Gosford. They had to take the sauce
Oh,
bottles
no.
down.
Ugh. The Abdish-Ata fans, I'm sure they made the trip just to see them. They'll be devastated.
Do you reckon they were too intimidated by the Abdish-Ata beers? They just couldn't compete.
Potentially, that could be the thing. It would have been great to see some halftime entertainment, like a mascot fight or something between
Absolutely.
a beer bottle and a sauce bottle. Yeah, yeah, that was your idea. Hey, yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Well, the teams are out for the second half. It's just about to get underway. 45 minutes to go, but of course, the possibility of extra time and penalties as well. It's great to have everyone in the chat at the moment. Please do reach out. We love having this interaction with you and talking football as well. Jacob says Raw really need the money from the deal for Tommy Waddingham as well. Sell-on clause needed. It's what goes back to what we were talking about before about the leverage of A-League clubs. Signing players on longer-term contracts, they get better negotiation power, and for someone with Tommy Waddingham's age, sell-on clause is definitely a high priority, but it remains to be seen. How has he got a longer contract at Brisbane? Do we know?
I don't know. I'll have a quick Google of that. But yeah, sell-on clauses are a huge thing. I remember Adelaide had some good business with Riley McGree with exactly that sort of thing. Where I think they brought him back to the club for about $1.5 million, sold him for about half that, and then got the rest of the money back through the sell-on clauses because he was sold about 2 or 3 times after that to different clubs.
Yeah.
So it's definitely lucrative for clubs, and something we haven't seen a lot of them use a lot in terms of when players do leave, and that's because players have been leaving, as we were speaking about earlier on this live stream. Players leave on free contracts a lot more often here, so the clubs don't get the chance to put those sorts of things in place.
Jacob says 2 more years, so that's great. That's great for Brisbane. A lot of negotiation power there. Hopefully they get a good deal. And Chris says regarding the sauce bottles, didn't bribe the AFC officials with mustard and barbecue sauce. It's an iconic part of the A-League. I did see there was a guy on Twitter who created a knockout bracket with all these different peak A-League moments.
I saw that,
and I think Matt Vanderberg's photo of the sauce bottles flipping him off came like second or even one or something. He got in the top 2.
That's one of the classics.
One of the great A-League moments.
Yeah.
Just an innocent little sauce bottle flipping off the camera. It's great. Best in the world. Best league in the world.
You don't get that anywhere else.
No, you don't. All right, well, the second half has kicked off. Come on, Mariners. Get the job done.
Give us something to talk about.
Oh my God, still got a few talking points in my back pocket.
Good. Hopefully the football does enough for us.
Hopefully it does.
Yeah, don't have to completely deplete your stocks of talking points.
Well, while we're here, this live streaming Watchalong has been a great success so far, even than just the 2 that we've done already. So we've got another one in the plans, and it is going to be this Saturday afternoon. We have the concurrent games between the Mariners, the Jets, and Wellington MacArthur, both kicking off 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, something like one of those 2.
5 o'clock, I think.
5 o'clock, something like that. I mean, 5:15 maybe, actually.
5:15, yeah.
So we are going to be live for those 2 concurrent games. So if we have 2 games of football, hopefully we definitely won't run out of things to talk about. But, of course, both teams playing for the premiership, they could win it. It's an unlikely scenario, I believe, where it'll... what has to happen? I guess a Mariners draw A Mariners draw and a Wellington win would push it to
Wellington
the
win.
Adelaide game, but
Yeah.
because Central Coast Mariners have the advantage of the tiebreaker, I think it's quite likely that the premiership will be decided on Saturday. So it's not the ideal situation we wanted because of that extra game, but it's still going to be a hell of a day of football, and we're very excited to be able to broadcast for that one as well. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it'll be great fun.
And of course, the Mariners getting top 2. Another interesting development out of that is that it saves the APL on their blushes a little bit, because the AFC Cup final is on a Sunday, not midweek. It's on a Sunday, the same week as the A-League elimination final. So
yeah.
if Mariners had to play that weekend and made the AFC Cup final, I'm not sure quite what they do. They couldn't move the AFC game, so I imagine the elimination would have to go to midweek, which would just be a PR nightmare. Not that not that they haven't had a lot worse this year, but moving a finals game would not have been ideal.
No, it's one of those things. It's a lack of foresight and planning, but it's also a case of maybe they just didn't even think that there would be a clash. Maybe they got confused with the naming scheme and thought that one of the 8 finals that the Mariners have been a part of so far was the real one. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely saved them from a bit of embarrassment.
I'm sure they were aware of it, but
yeah,
I think it was definitely one of those situations where it wasn't worth worrying about until it actually eventuated. But it won't, thankfully, for the APL. Jacob says, sad the 2 simultaneous games aren't the Mariners' last game anymore. Yes, that is a little bit of a disappointment, but there was really no way to go about it apart from postponing the Adelaide game. The first estimates were that they would arrive back 43 hours before the game. They got back even later than that, so it was just never going to happen.
Well, it would have been a good litmus test, though, for Tottenham when they come over, because they're going to be on a tight turnaround as well.
What do we figure out? 65 hours, maybe?
Something like that, yeah. It could have been good to use the Mariners as sort of guinea pigs for that experiment and see if it's possible.
Yeah, true. There was something coming out of England's in the last few days about potentially banning teams from these kind of postseason friendlies, which is unfortunate, but hopefully that happens after Newcastle and Tottenham come to town.
I think that's a lot of discourse regarding the FA Cup changes that have been made there, which has been far from popular. I think that might be a sort of case of people saying, well, what do you mean you can't play one extra replay, but you can do 8 international friendlies sort of thing. So I think that's where that sort of stems from. But it's great for places like Australia and the places they do visit for fans to be able to have the chance to see these teams play. You don't get that opportunity often. You'd have to go to Europe to watch them play, and that's prohibitively expensive for a lot of people to just get a flight just to watch your team play. So it is good for local fans to be able to watch their team, watch their idols. I remember when Arsenal came down. What was it?
Oh, breaking in. That's the first real chance from open play.
Yep.
Inside the box, I should say.
It's these first couple of minutes in both halves, Mariners have looked a lot better. They started the first half quite well, and now in this one they've come out with sort of a good intent. They're going to have to really capitalize on it. It's the cameraman there takes a bit of a hit.
Yeah. The little foam bollard didn't go a long way to there. Well, on the topic of those Europeans coming down, of course, we saw the announcement of the All-Star kit and the first few players. So the question I have for you now, Jacob, is what kit should Newcastle United wear against the all-black All-Stars? It's a little bit of a kit clash with their home kit, isn't it?
Yeah. Somebody has to turn their shirts inside out or something. Wear bibs or I don't know. Yeah. Special one-off maybe for Newcastle. I don't know. What are their away kit? I think is their away kit.
It's like a green or
it's
something.
That might be all right. They won't get confused for the grass. So
we've just seen another replay of that Abdish player. He really got on top of the camera there, didn't he? Knocked something off.
He's like jumped up the up the foam thing, climbed onto the camera. That's one way of doing it.
Cameraman's having a good laugh about it.
uh,
Jacob says, I'm only interested in watching these big teams when they play A-League teams. I'm sure that's the sentiment of a lot of A-League fans, but of course, plenty of European football fans in Australia. Those games will have no problem selling out. Although I believe the pricing is pretty steep, actually. So it'll be interesting.
What isn't nowadays? What isn't?
Yes. But at Marvel Stadium, of course, so plenty of room. It'll be interesting to see how the Newcastle Tottenham goes at the. That's Marvel as well, isn't it? So yeah, earlier in the week. But it's funny, we've moved away from Sydney with the grand final deal, but it almost feels like we're getting a bigger festival of football than ever.
I think this is what maybe
it's what they wanted to do, right?
Wanted to do, yeah, with Sydney, but it's basically impossible to do because the season's still on for European. I mean,
yeah,
it's like we said, it's like 60 hours or so after that final game of the season for them. It can be a little bit tough to make it work, and with venue availability, with team availability, all of that, it's a tough one. But historically, these international friendlies in Australia have done pretty well and almost always sold out. So I have no doubt it'll be the same here.
Yeah, I know I said it last time as well, but the friendly between Melbourne Victory and Liverpool was a personal favourite with the MCG. That was brilliant. Jacob says, borrow the Jets kit. The Newcastle compatriots.
That would be great. That would be great.
That would be very good. So it turns out Aaron Kunda and Daniel Pena both didn't make our starting 11s, but they will be in the All-Star teams.
Yeah.
Probably not a surprise, really. We kind of went more for a team of the season kind of look, but yeah.
Yeah. I think we were more looking at the season as a whole, consistency, impact for their team. Whereas All Stars, it's obviously a fan vote. It's going to be almost sort of a popularity thing where it's who's got the, whose name attracts the
and
the
they
most
just pick the
attention.
marketable players as well.
And they pick the marketable ones. Yeah, I don't think anyone's surprised that either of them are in there. To be honest, it's Aaron Kunda especially because he had two chances in making it as a regular squad player or making it as one of the rising stars. So.
For sure. Jacob Farrell winning another free kick. Another tick in his book. He's very good at that. You know what I find interesting about Jacob Farrell as well? Like when he obviously milks free kicks. Like no one's questioning that. Yeah. But he just goes down. Like he doesn't complain too much. He doesn't make a big fanfare. He just goes down.
It's like he's been shot. Yeah. It's just drops to the floor.
So I kind of respect that in a way. It's like Robbie Stanton was saying with the Kankar incident. It's like, well, yeah, it's not a great part of the game, but you're a product of your environment, and you're going to get a profit from that. And Farrell doesn't make a big deal out of it, but he does what's good for the team and to win fouls.
Yeah, and I think as well, in doing that and not making a fuss about it, makes it look more natural, like something might have happened. Whereas if somebody's a bit more, I guess,
Now, this one was not a dive. Christian Theoharis with a high foot. It appears to have made contact with the head of the Abdish player.
That was not a wise decision from Theoharis there.
No, foot to the head straight away usually only means one colour.
Yeah.
We're going to see a replay now. The foot goes up. He does make contact, studs to the head. The referee hasn't. He's probably just delaying so we can get some assistance from his AR on the sideline.
And that's one as well where
that's a red card.
Can't even claim ignorance to where the opposition player was either because they're running at each other. Like it's not like he's come from behind or anything like that.
You can see him.
He's right there.
Philly says red card. I agree with you. Jacob says he's very lucky there. The referee appears to just be setting up for a free kick. I don't even think I saw a yellow. He's just not
even given anything. Nah.
That is astounding.
That's
the
one of
in. That's it.
The most mental calls I think I've ever. That's as easy a red card as a referee will have to give.
Foot to the head straight away. As ALOO calls him behind, keeper's off his line. Oh, he's brought him down. No free kick.
What is going on? I was complaining that there wasn't enough to talk about in this game, and now
one each way potentially. The ball goes out to Theoharis. They're still on the attack. The Mariners.
That one on the keeper. I think it was just both players lost the ball a little bit and just ran into each other. But it was definitely not a wise move to come out that far and challenge for the ball.
The keeper has not played the ball there. Questions could be raised
No.
whether ALOO is going to get it. Oh, no, he absolutely is. He's not the last defender, to be fair. There's
Yeah, he's
someone
reaching
behind
for
him.
it.
But that is at least a foul and probably a yellow
Yeah.
card.
Yeah, that's... Qualls literally got the touch to put it past him as well. Like, he gets his toe on it.
I think,
And then,
yes,
and
the
just
sentiment of our
cleaned off the
chat at
ball.
the moment is very much one of confusion. What the hell, ref? How is that not even a yellow? Pletty, welcome in. I believe Pletty's having trouble getting into the Riverside call, so perhaps you just
Oh, no.
join in the chat for now. But a corner for the Mariners. It's fallen to... Oh, no. ALOO Qual gone about 60 metres over the bar.
He has not had a great game so far, has he? He's got on the end of a lot and not been able to do enough with it.
Now, somehow,
do you make that change?
Dano Vukovic has picked up a yellow card. You can only imagine that's for remonstration.
Yeah. I'd presume probably for the call not given against Qual.
Yes.
I don't think he'd get a yellow card for remonstrating that Diarras did not get sent off.
Well, that has certainly pumped some life into the game. Tensions are flaring on both sides. Both feel that they should have had a decision in their favour, neglected by the referee. That is quite a little phase there.
That was, everything just happened then.
So Phillies is asked, why are the Mariners in the AFC Cup, not in the Champions League like Melbourne City? So the allocation of spots from each country in Asia to the Asian competitions changes every year, and it is based upon how well the teams do historically in those competitions. As Mikkel Docker is just breaking down the right, floats it in. It is dealt with somewhat, but it's picked up again by Theo Harris on the corner of the box, and that attacking phase fizzles out. So, yes. Oh, here's Ballard actually with some space. Oh, thunderous shot. Oh. The follow-up. Oh, what a save. Keeper's at it again. Brilliant effort to deny.
But we're seeing more chances now, and much more fluid football from the Mariners. Looking a lot more threatening.
So this game is being broadcast on 10 Play, by the way, the website, which is the free to watch. Switch to YouTube. Oh, good day. Please do leave us a subscription as well. You get a little alert pop up, would be great.
Don't forget to stick around.
Yeah. So the allocations are based on the historical performance of the teams in Asia. Australia's over the last few years have not been great. We've been propped up for a long time by the Western Sydney Wanderers win in the Champions League in 2014. Not 2014, 2016, perhaps?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And we also missed a year because of COVID. So the first stages of the competitions were due to take place during the A-League finals season of 2021, I believe it was. So we decided in turn to not send any teams to Asia because of the rescheduled series. So the coefficient has suffered. We've dropped down. We had one spot in the Champions League, which went to the premiers from last year, City. Then we had MacArthur from winning the Cup, and the Mariners for winning the grand final, I think. Or it could be their regular season positions. But either way, it further decreased for next year. We're just getting one team in the Champions League Elite, which will be the Mariners, and then one in the Champions League 2, which will be Sydney FC. So it's all changing.
Yep. It's all too much to keep track of, to be honest. I'm just going to rely on your information from here on out.
Yes. But the idea is, if you look at the coefficient numbers, we won't go into it in too much detail, but the two nations directly above us, Thailand and China, they also have a lot of big scores because obviously it's a rolling coefficient. So as time goes, you lose scores from a few years ago, and it's 8 years now, so it goes back pretty far. But they have a lot of big scores that they're going to knock off in the next 3 or 4 years. So that should be the goal, to get in front of them within 3 years. And then we'll be third in the East behind Japan and Korea, who are a long way ahead. So that should be the goal for Australia.
I think it makes sense when you look at the fact there's been, 3 three good campaigns in Asia in A-League history. You've got this one currently by the Mariners. You've got the Wanderers winning the Champions League, and you've got Adelaide making the final back in 2008 or whenever it was.
And
It's
Paletti's made their way in.
And Paletti has joined it. Hello.
Yes.
Good to have you. You finally made it.
It took. Put it this way: I was on hold to support for longer this afternoon than I spent trying to get into this room. So I've been used to long. I've been used to long wait times today, unfortunately.
Well,
but I'm here now. And don't forget as well for those, because I was catching the back end of that discussion about which team's going where in which Asian competition. Melbourne City are Australia's representatives in the Women's Asian Champions League. That was confirmed by Football Australia today, because it's the premiers that go through, not the grand final winners.
Yes, it's good to have that clarified. But here come Abdish. That's another promising chance. Cut back to the top of the box, goes over the bar. How much of this game have you managed to catch, Paletti?
I've been, I think I came in about 2 minutes into the second half.
Okay, cool.
So you've seen all the exciting stuff.
Well, I mean, I saw a red card what should have been a red card, and then what should have been another red card. So, I know we talked about VAR on Monday, but yeah, that's if there was ever a case for why VAR is needed, this game is it.
Jacob says,
I'll leave my criticism of the AFC's referees at that.
Jacob says, need a cup competition that runs during the A-League season for more games and more to play for. I've been thinking about this as well. I would love a combined cup competition between the A-League and the NST. I think getting those two leagues together, the two national leagues, to play during the A-League. Oh, it is tough because obviously the season differences.
Because you've got the AFC going into the winter season, and then you have the not the AFC, the second division will be running across the winter season, and then the top flight still runs across summer, which is why the Australia Cup is a pre-season tournament for the A-League sides.
So then maybe you flip it around and you say the beginning stages of, let's just call it a League Cup, because that's probably the language that people will be familiar with. But if a League Cup started towards the end of the A-League season and ended almost with the conclusion of the A-League season, would also be the early stages of warm-up for the championship or the NST, but then the last few games would also overlap with the start of their season.
I think the problem that comes there is A-League sides probably might not take it seriously. I think just because of the fact
that's just the problem of a cup competition.
But I'm saying they're coming into their finals competition. If we're expecting our sides to run deep into AFC competitions, that's going to be prioritized. Let's say, for example, the Mariners, right? If they're competing in this League Cup, plus, as you probably just heard my cat go psycho in the background, go into, deep into the AFC competition. They've got finals to worry about. I think 3 competitions at the pointy end of the season is probably a little bit too much, just because of when you would be starting it. You'd ideally have to be starting it around probably round 16, round 17. And I think trying to fit the fixtures in would just be a little bit too difficult. I like the idea in theory, because the reality is more games, though. Our players need to be playing more games for their development, but I just don't know if a third cup competition is the right way to be going about it, given how unaligned the Australian footballing calendar is.
Well, in that case, and outlandish and will never happen, scrap finals. And then you don't have that problem.
I could get behind that.
No. So
I know it's a money maker for the league, but I could get behind that.
I think the only way a cup competition kind of over the summer would work really is because if you get these NST teams that have 12-month professional contracts, then the players are on the books and could play those kind of games as well.
It's almost like a pre-season tournament for the NST sides then.
Yeah, but and then it rolls into the first month as well. So they still have the Australia Cup at the back end of their season, and then we have the League Cup at the front end and the back end of the A-League season. And I get your point around fixture congestion, but that's just a reality of football all over the world. You have the crescendo of all these competitions happening at the same time, and that's just part
No,
of it.
you know what we're going to do is we're going to need to replicate what the MLS are doing with the Leagues Cup over there, with the with the Liga MX sides, and
No.
it's going to be in July, in the middle of the NST season, after the 1 July contract rollover, and they're going to play all these games in July just before the start of the Australia Cup when those sides enter. There's your solution.
Chris says the A-Leagues Cup potentially, but again, that's probably one of those things where we'd have to wait until the A-Leagues 2, when that we actually get a connected pyramid. But open to other naming suggestions as well. Jacob says that's good. More games that A-League teams can play young players, and a way they can sign players and build bigger squads while promising minutes, but not necessarily all being in the league. That's the thing as well. Yeah, you get more professional minutes being played, and they don't all have to go to your first 11. And even if they don't take it 100% seriously, it's still competitive minutes for Australian footballers at the very least, I guess.
Well, and all the discussion about the NST hopefully being able to close the gap to the A-League and create a pathway. You're only going to get that if they're able to play against the teams that are above them more frequently than just maybe one cup game a year in the FFA Cup or the Australian Cup.
Imagine a full-strength NST team coming up against a slightly undermanned youth team in the A-League. That theoretically should be quite a competitive matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if we're going to talk about youth A-League players competing in teams in some sort of competitions, perhaps we could give them their own league. I'm open to naming suggestions. How about the Y League?
Yeah, it's on its way. It's on its way. It's coming. It's just extremely low down on the priority list for the APL at the moment, which is understandable. Philly
I wonder
says,
if we've ever had such a competition in the past.
Times have changed. Philly says, in terms of team sports, is football not very popular in Australia? No, it's not. Relative to the other sporting codes, it's considered at least a tier 2 sport. So we have Australian rules and rugby as well, which dominate in the winter, which is why we play in summer. It's just the reality of it at the moment. But we have 20 minutes left in regular time in the game between the Mariners and Abdish, and still no deadlock to be broken. We could be going extras here.
It's very reminiscent of the first leg when neither team is able to really get anything on goal. Just sort of a stalemate the whole way through. I mean, Abdish-Ata have looked threatening from set pieces, and it was the Mariners that struck from a set piece in the first leg. It could be the difference here as well.
Definitely could be. Another shout out for their travelling support, by the way. It's very impressive.
Mm-hmm. We talk about the distances that away fans have to travel here. That's halfway around the world they've come from. So it's a very, very impressive turnout from them.
Oh no, Paletti. The rain is back.
I can't hear it.
There's a no-nonsense clearance from Dan Hall.
That was just
all the way down the field.
Kick the ball as hard as you can, sort of thing.
Now, we have seen one change for the Central Coast Mariners. Ryan Edmondson coming on for ALOO Kuol. Jacob, how does that shift their strategy?
Well, as we can see when they're sitting out of possession, and as I've spoken about, Edmondson sits a little bit deeper than ALOO Kuol would. And I think the issue is that Kuol just wasn't making the off-the-ball movement that was needed to be able to break in behind Abdish-Ata with any sort of real consistency and threat as well. Even when he was getting in behind, his touches were letting him down. He had that skied shot from about 13 yards out that went probably out of the stadium. He just didn't look comfortable up front at all. I think with Edmondson coming in, it just offers something different. As I said earlier, you've got 3 or 4 system strikers. You're going to change things around. You're going to, instead of looking to play direct up the wing, you might look to play a little bit more central now for the Mariners and bring the likes of Josh Nisbet, who's had a very quiet game. You might be able to bring him into play a little bit more.
And Miguel DiPizio has come on, which sees Christian Theoharis making way. Do you think that's in a direct response to his red card?
He shouldn't be on the pitch anyway, so... You
think they should just not pour a sub on?
Yeah.
Josh Nisbet breaking away, though. Mikael Docker, a very tame chance, although I believe that'll be a deflection for a Mariners corner. Brian Kaltak time, last 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. But again, there, you get Nisbet on the ball and things happen. You know, he's not had enough of the ball so far today to really be able to create those chances that in fact, what's he up to now? About 10 goal contributions in the league, with almost all of them being assists. You know,
A few more than that now.
He's just so good at creating chances for others, and when he's not able to get into the game, the Mariners can struggle.
Oh, failed clearance here. No, free kick.
Yeah, it happened in the first leg because of the pitch, as we spoke about, where the ball was just holding up, bouncing around. It was inconsistent. But in this one, they've just been unable to get the ball to him, really.
Yeah. I make it. Oh, I win. 2 goals, 9 assists.
There we go.
Just got it.
But that's impressive. 9 assists.
9. Yeah, that is crazy.
For a central midfielder is pretty good.
And the 2 goals he scored were like exactly the same as well. Receiving the ball, half turn, left foot, far post.
Yep.
9 assists. Is he Conor McDavid or something? That's one of our hockey fans. That's a reference our hockey fans will understand.
That's a very niche
football,
reference, Paletti.
Football is the one we're watching.
I see you wearing your.
Well,
is that a Golden Knights jersey?
It is a Golden Knights jersey. Yeah. I mean, we've got two 99s on the pitch. Which one of them is Gretzky?
Well, I do know who Wayne Gretzky is, but
I'd be very concerned. Actually, I've got a question. Is the only reason you know who Wayne Gretzky is because of The Office?
I don't even understand the reference you're referring to.
Okay, good.
So, no. 15 minutes to go. I really, the good thing is, if it does go to extras, it's not another 10 p.m. Kickoff time. We got on a little bit earlier today.
Yeah, it'll still be a reasonable time that we finish up. But it does look like it's going to extras, doesn't it? I mean, neither team look like they're going to find the breakthrough at the minute.
I mean, you're starting to get to around that point of the match where neither side wants to lose it. And so this is the sort of time where you'll start to see teams tighten up defensively. Tactics will, I don't quite want to say parking the bus on either side, but, defenses will become a little bit more compact. There's going to be less counter-attacking because, you don't want to give away a chance, that sort of vibe, unfortunately. Which can make for some pretty dour football in these last few stages.
Well, it's interesting because in the first leg, obviously there's a different dynamic. But late in the game, it was a little more relaxed and they opened up a little bit more, and that's what created some of those chances. Whereas, potentially the second leg, obviously it's a bit more cutthroat. The stakes are a lot higher. As Emerson looks to be getting in behind. Oh, it's DePizio. He's got an open net.
It's
a goal.
There it is.
As I say it, we're going to see the teams tighten up. We get a goal. Thank you, Mariners. I expect my check in the mail. My cut of that $750,000 US. I expect that in the mail. Thank you very much.
I mean, again, that's on the goal. That's the same mistake he made with that Quoll challenge that he had. He's just come out way too early and way too far. It's a big mistake, and
keeper off his line.
Mariners have capitalized on it. Feliz is not happy.
Feliz is from the Kyrgyz Republic, so seeing fans all the way down there in Australia makes me excited. Followed by, sorry for the pitch quality in Bishkek. Followed by, no.
Now, what's interesting about this play, and the replay is not going to go all the way back to where it started. But this started directly from the back. This started from Danny Vukovic, goal
playing
kick,
out from the back,
playing out from the back, as you said. I thought it was going to be a horror turnover when I saw. Oh no, he's gone straight up the middle, and then it's just gone pass, lob, bring it down, play the through ball, and it's in the back of the net.
And a word from the pass from Mikhail Docker.
I was about to say that
on the outside of the foot.
Outside of the foot, on the volley
as well.
Fantastic
that
pass.
Was maybe 9 or 10 passes from one end to the other in the back of the net. Like that's
very good.
That's a good play, and honestly, well done to. That's clearly a set piece that they've been working on at training. So well done to Mark Jackson and the coaching staff for making sure that they can execute a play like that properly.
Well, the goal has gone in. The Mariners have 1 foot into the final of the AFC Cup. They need to hold out for another 12 minutes. Of course, Jacob, they failed to do that last week in the first leg.
They did.
Nervy moments.
They did. And so far in this second half, though, unlike in the first leg, Abdish-Ata have really not been able to get into it. They look good in that first half, in those half spaces, like I mentioned. But the Mariners have tightened that up. so far in the second half. And when that's where the bulk of the chances are coming for Abdish-Ata, they're going to have to find something now more than ever, because this second half has not been good for them.
Nisbet's danced through here. He's found the ball to the far post. Is that Docker for 2? Good save. Should have stayed on his line that time.
Cleared about 2 yards out as well. Not quite a goal line clearance. Well, that's got to be a free kick. What?
All right, Pallady.
But again, get Nisbet on the ball and things happen. Like,
Yep, 100%.
He created that entirely himself by turning like 2 or 3 players in the centre of the park.
And Jacob Farrell, the Dark Artist, wins another foul on the left wing for the Mariners. But that is another good chance for Docker. He hasn't had a great night in front of goal, but getting in the right spots for these chances.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just had I think it's Koi Clinis in the chat say 10 play thinks I'm on a VPN, so you guys are my lifeline. I've had the exact same issue for the last I've had the same issue for the last 2 months trying to access 10 play and Paramount Plus, so I can only use it when I'm using my mobile connection at the moment. So I've currently got 3 different internet connections running just to be part of this stream.
I didn't even think about the market of people that couldn't access 10 play as Mikel Docker swings in this free kick, and it is a poor one. Although they're appealing for a handball, but very low to the ground. Could have been a head, could have been an arm. But he's got the return ball dancing his way into the penalty box. But it's cleared well by Abdish. 10 minutes to go. So close for the Mariners.
Again, hold on, and for dear life.
I've just had a look at the advertising hoardings that were going around during that last passage of play, and it's talking about event services and hiring. Is there someone that needs an event at the moment that might be looking for a service that might be involved in Australian football by any chance?
Okay. Yes. The Johnny Warren Julie Dolan Medal Awards is the event that Pallady is referring to. A little bit of irony there, you're suggesting?
I just thought it was funny.
Only Paletti in a game of football would point out the advertising hoardings. I'll leave that.
If you're Mark Jackson, do you make changes here? Because you've got this weekend to think about. You've conceded a late goal last week, and you, of course, with the threat of extra time, you don't want to lock yourself into a defensive change when nowhere to go if you do end up conceding.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as that first leg. It's like, do you do it and risk conceding and then not having the attacking options to get the goal back? Do you have confidence in the substitutions to be able to hold on? Do you make a substitution to get a second goal and, win the game that way? Yeah. Do you take into consideration your game on the weekend? Like, there's going to be so much for him to think about. In the first leg, kind of made a difference in a way in that they did look a little bit more comfortable on the ball after the changes, but Theo Harris giving away a couple of free kicks in that first leg as well, which didn't help. So I don't know. I don't envy his position right now, because a 1-goal lead is like the worst you can have in football, to be honest, because you've got this decision to make, and if it comes off, you're a genius. If it doesn't, then you look like a bit of an idiot.
Chris says, hold the medals night in my backyard. I'll cater with bread and sausages. That's very on brand, isn't it?
There's nothing that Australians love more than a good democracy.
Well, that's a bad challenge.
That's a very bad challenge.
Yeah, that's horrific. That's
another yellow
card. Rightly so.
Bradley Tapp perhaps giving a little bit of what he got earlier in the game. I think that's a fairly adjudged yellow card.
Yeah, that one is not as bad as the one in the first half, or the one from Theo Harris that we saw a little bit earlier either. Which I still can't believe didn't get a card.
Yeah, nothing. Not even a yellow.
Not even a yellow.
Perhaps the referee paid the free for danger, but then it would have been indirect as well. So,
yeah.
I'm not sure. Who knows? Hatchie says Bunnings Warehouse will be big enough, plus has the sausages already provided. That's a good point. That's a very economic move.
Yeah. It'll have everything you need there to set it all up as well.
True.
Don't have to worry about bringing a bunch of stuff in. You can just buy it all there.
Buy it on the day. I like it.
Yeah.
They have dropped the front line a little bit here, Jacob, as well, haven't they?
Yeah, it's sitting a little deeper now. Like a lot deeper.
Yeah.
It's a lot deeper. Sitting in almost sort of a low block now. I think it's a case of there's 7 minutes left plus stoppage time. See it out.
They're allowing pressure, and that shot
what
is fizzled wide of the
that
goal.
was.
As you say, Jacob, there's swings and roundabouts here. Wherever you try to go back, you invite more pressure on the team, and you're allowing these kind of long range attempts.
Yep. Well, and that's what they kind of scored from in that first one was sort of edge of the area, unmarked. It's
he swipes across it there, and it's not really close, but
does.
it's the chance creation we're worried about.
Mm.
And all it takes is for, that's probably going to come off, one in every 50 times. But the reality is you only need one, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You also retain possession 100% of the times with the shots you don't take.
But as we were talking about earlier with the Ollie Roos, what does possession matter if you're not creating chances? So
okay, we could do this all day. They definitely are getting some more attacking threats here.
They are.
Abdish.
Caltech's doing a very, very solid job winning those duels and keeping the Abdish-Ata players from getting in behind. That's the benefit of having a big physical presence in the back line. It's almost sort of an intimidation factor if you can just bully them off the ball a little bit.
Danny Vukovic a little bit loose with the feet there, trying to waste a few seconds and not pick up the ball. But we're down to 5 minutes left in regular time. Not a whole lot left for Abdish to try claw something back. But again, they did it last week. So the Mariners will have to be vigilant here. So close to progression to the final of the AFC Cup. And here we go. Docker is in behind again. Cuts inside. Deflection. Goal!
Oh, that's surely...
Mikael Docker putting the Central Coast Mariners into the final of Asian competition. The last Australian team to do so since the Western Sydney Wanderers. What a night in Gosford. They've done it.
There it is. Well, and you were mentioning before, Lockie, that Docker kept finding himself in that position and his finishing maybe wasn't on point tonight. And that one, it took a deflection, but it went in, and I don't think he will mind one bit about that.
Not at all. Clearly onside. Is that Nisbet with the assist again? He cuts inside beautifully, Mikael Docker, and it is a fortunate deflection, but the Mariners fans won't care one bit.
That's very much reminded me of Yakulish's goal that went in off Marcelo's head on the weekend in the City Wanderers game. Just, players tried to do the right thing, and that was going well wide.
That was going well wide, yeah. We've just seen the reverse angle on the replay.
That was going so far wide that, honestly, they'll be gutted that they've let such an ezy chance in and essentially kill off every chance of coming back to tie this game. But a historic day in Australian football. We're going to have a side into another final of an Asian Cup competition, and do we know who they're facing yet? Has that other leg been decided?
Yes, it was played yesterday. Yep, I can't remember the team's name off the top of my head, but it has been decided. 3 minutes left. We are now ticking into the 88th minute, barring a remarkable comeback now. It looks like the Mariners will progress, and that's a shot based on a lot of hope rather than anything from Abdish, which rolls out for a Danny Vukovic. Goal kick for Lee's. Apologies. He's invited Chris to come to Bishkek, free beers on the house.
Can you send some to us? We've been trying to get some Abdish-Ata
we want some
drinks,
beers.
but it's not been able to happen for us. So if you could send us some, that would be great.
Yes, and of course, as being mentioned in the chat as well, a big monetary prize on offer for just qualifying for the final. I believe it will mark profitability for the Mariners in this tournament as well, which is huge for the football club, not just the trophy. And to win it would get even more. An exceptional story, really.
Okay, so the Mariners will play Lebanese Premier League side Al Ahed FC. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. It's interesting that when you Google this particular side, it already comes up with fireworks and the trophy, saying that they are already the champions.
Well, they won the
AFC
Western
Cup.
Zone.
They won, yeah.
They won the Western Zone. They've won a final.
Google is
Maybe-
as confused as the rest of us.
Maybe we should have Googled the Mariners after every time they won an interzonal semi-final.
After tonight,
or
they're going to
interzonal
win
final.
the interzonal final.
And they're in behind again. Or
Or Edmondson goes
Edmondson
down.
down too easy.
that was very,
Yeah.
very easy. Speaking of Edmondson, actually, his movement was key in that last goal because I don't know if you guys caught it. He came very deep and drew that centre back along with him, which opened the space for Docker to make the run into. Just a little nerdy thing there for those of you who like that sort of stuff.
So how much of the prize money do you reckon goes into Josh Nisbet's next contract?
I reckon probably a good 80% of it. Like marquee wages surely for Josh Nisbet at this point to keep him for the Mariners.
Probably.
Lock him up on a 3-year deal, and you'll get a transfer fee for him next year if Australian football keeps going the way it's going with the number of transfers that seem to be making their way through our domestic.
That has to be their key priority
moment.
off the field, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be keep Nisbet. But I just want to go back to who the Mariners are going to be playing in the AFC Cup final. It's interesting that it is a Lebanese side we're coming up against because we just saw the Socceroos have to play Lebanon both games in Australia. I know that this game is supposed to be hosted by the West side, but I can't imagine that, like, if the AFC has just told Lebanon that you can't play an international game at home.
That's a very good point.
I can't imagine they're going to make the Mariners play in Lebanon.
That's
so
a very
that
good
opens up
point.
the possibility of either neutral territory, which might make it a little bit easier on the Mariners,
Or home.
I think that might be a distinct possibility that this game could be played in Gosford.
There's turnover and it is 3. That
is
is pure desperation from the
That
Abdish
is when
players
playing it
there.
out from the back goes wrong, and DiPizio has no trouble in capitalising to make it 3-0 on the night and 4-1 on aggregate.
He's done well to capitalise on errors there, DiPizio, and he has well and truly sent the Mariners into the final. The prospect of a home final, I haven't given that much thought, Paletti, but it's a very good argument. I can't imagine anyone apart from the team in Lebanon itself would be too attracted to playing the game in neutral territory.
I mean, maybe the AFC if they find the right bidder.
Just
I don't know.
host it in Dubai or something.
But it's always hosted by one of the teams. It just so happens that every year it switches. So every 2 years it's hosted by the winner from the West. Every other year it's hosted by the team from this interzonal playoff system. So if we were in a different season, it would be the Mariners hosting, and if we can't host it in the West, bring it to Gosford. Come on, let's go.
I have absolutely no issue with that. I'd love for this game to be in Gosford. I think most people would like for this game to be in Gosford. So it'll be interesting to see how the AFC approaches that. And they're running out of time to decide. They've only got 9 days, give or take.
Yeah, week and a half, Sunday week. Chris is saying in the chat initial reports that it's being played in Iraq. That's interesting. We'll have to go and check that one as well.
That's as interesting a decision as playing it in Lebanon at this point.
Al-Ahad social media, according to Chris. So that's, as I said, neutral territory is probably not the worst.
Well, sure, as in Hashi has just said, surely the Mariners could pay AFC. Perhaps there's a negotiation there as well. We have seen, around the world, there are these systems where teams can pay for the right to play games at home. So that could be a negotiation as well. There are 7 minutes of additional time, but it is 3-0 on the night, and I need to update the scoreboard yet again to 4-1 on aggregate. Abdish will not be coming back from now, and just a couple of victory laps for the Mariners. As we say goodbye to Feliz. He's can't finish it off. A couple of minutes to go. It's been great to have you from Kyrgyzstan.
Fantastic to have you, mate.
Commiserations on the night, but great to have you here. Been a pleasure, not really.
That's great.
No, I've absolutely enjoyed having you tonight, Feliz. Thank you for joining us. It's greatly appreciated.
It's great though, isn't it? This is we get to chat with people from the Kyrgyz Republic about football. How awesome is that?
Yeah, and I think it's Hachi makes an interesting point. Is that the Mariners, you know, if they don't get to play the game, have a very heavy schedule over the next few days. They've got the Jets on Saturday in the F3 Derby. But that they don't have to travel far for that. Or is that game in Gosford? I don't remember. Um,
Yeah, it's in Gosford.
Yeah.
yeah, so they get to play at home. Then they play Adelaide again on the Wednesday night that could potentially decide the Premier's plate. And then if they've got to go play in Iraq, as opposed to playing this game in
That's
Gosford,
tight, yeah.
essentially they would. I mean, they can't even leave Wednesday night because of the Sydney airport curfew. That's one of the
Yeah.
things I dislike about this city. So they basically, I'm assuming, fly out first thing Thursday morning. They, won't get any sort of recovery session in. Won't get, any sort of anything in, and then it's basically straight into this AFC Cup final. So it's
Well, as we enter into the 5th minute of stoppage time, those of you who would be listening to the 10-play coverage will have just been notified of this by Andy Harper. But we talked about Yokohama F. Marinos playing their Asian Champions League fixture at the moment. They were 1-0 down after the first leg last week. They conceded they scored 3 goals within the first half hour of this game to take a 3-1 lead. So I realised I've got the timer on the wrong slot. I screwed it up. Oh, well, we'll fix that later. But they've also conceded 2 and received a red card, and it is now half-time. So it is 3 all on aggregate, and Harry Kewell's men will have to play the remainder of that game with 10 men.
Wow.
So
and they've got
when this game finishes, head over to that one as well.
That's tough for That's tough for Yokohama. Harry Kewell getting a nice introduction to life in AFC competitions.
Well, it is an Asian Champions League semi-final at the end of the day, so it was never going to be easy. But the Mariners here are looking to get into their own final. It's another ball from Nisbet in behind for DiPizio, who can't quite wrangle this one in.
Bit under hit that pass, I think. Just sort of dragged him away from goal a bit too much. Couldn't get that touch to take him past the defender.
And Will, just in case you're listening, if training's done and you've turned on the stream, the treble, it's on. We're still going.
No, so and thank you again to Hachi in the chat. The game is in Newcastle. It's not in Gosford. So the Mariners have to do a little bit of travel up the F3. And actually, that's right. I do remember hearing. I want to say it was the Far Post podcast that I was listening to earlier this week. They're going to have 2 supporter buses leaving Gosford. One's coming down to Sydney and one's going up to Newcastle. Because the Mariners women are in action on Saturday afternoon in the second leg of their semi-final against Sydney FC in the A-League women's competition. So I will be at Leichhardt Oval for that one, and I would highly recommend as many people get to that game as you can. It's it has the nickname of the 8th wonder of the world for the reason. Even if some of the facilities need a slight update.
Well,
it is still a fantastic venue.
We are running in to the final seconds here. I imagine there'll be some quite enthusiastic celebrations. An amazing crowd for a midweek game for an A-League side as well. And that is the final whistle. The fans are on their feet. The Central Coast Mariners will advance to a continental final, and Mark Jackson being enveloped by his coaching staff there. Amazing story for the Mariners in his first season. He's got them into the top 2, challenging for the Premiership, challenging for the Championship, and challenging for the AFC Cup.
And I just want to say, it's when the full-time whistle went, the camera cut immediately to the bench and the coaching staff, and they're all celebrating. And even though he didn't have a smile on his face, you could just tell the pure emotion that was on Matt Simon's face. It just shows how much it means to him. He's been the lifeblood of this club for a number of years. He did have a stint at Sydney FC under Graham Arnold, but he bleeds the Mariners through and through. And just his reaction kind of says it basically says 1,000 words. Like if you say, paint me a picture, it'll tell me 1,000 words. That picture right there basically says everything you need to know about how much this means to the club.
Mm-hmm.
Credit to Abdish-Ata as well. They held on for 77 minutes in this game and brought it to the Mariners, had the better of the first half, arguably. It wasn't to be for them this time around, but credit to how far they got in this competition. And they'll travel home, Jacob, with a lot of pride, no doubt.
Yep. And safe journeys home to them, to their massive amount of away supporters that have come down. That's a seriously impressive group that have travelled for this game. It was a good, proper game of football in both legs of this match, and you can see,
the
Abdish-Ata players.
Cut to a player crying and being consoled by his teammates and one of the coaching staff. As they make their way over to the travelling supporters to thank them, and looks like a couple of the fans are crying as well. It's unfortunately one team has to win, but that also means one team has to lose, and in this case, the visitors have come up well short on the night. But honestly, when you can travel halfway across the world and get that level of traveling support, that's a wonderful sight to see. It's like we don't even get, sometimes in A-League we don't even get fans traveling, interstate in the numbers that Abdish-Ata have brought their traveling support tonight. So it really is a sight to see.
Yeah, Hatchie says as well, 3-0. I don't think that would be a true reflection of this game. Was well played by Abdish. Absolutely. The second 2 goals are obviously products of desperation. They have to chase the game late in a second leg. So those things happen when you push for goals, when you absolutely need them. But as Paletti's house falls over. But well played to them.
Yes, and, unfortunately, that is Alex Kidiak, a very psycho young kitty.
Cats, by the way, cats. Just to clear that up for anyone wondering.
Yes, no, I have I've had Sam Purr for a number of months now, and I saw a cat up for adoption last week, a 4-month-old kitten who was actually rescued out of a stormwater drain, and fell in love with her immediately. And I've been undergoing a naming quest over the last few days, and settled on Alex Kidiak. And that was in part because the actual person who inspires that name, Alex Kidiak, responded with a photo of her cat on Twitter, and I'm just like, well, that puts it over the edge. I don't really have a choice now.
All right. Any last thoughts on this game, guys, before we sign off?
I'm glad there were some goals.
Well, it all came to life with those 2 decisions, didn't it?
It did.
Potential red card to Christian Theo Harris.
Yeah. You just think those are those moments where both teams would be thinking, what if a red card was given there? What if a red card was given to the keeper? Like, anything could have happened. It could have completely changed the game. So
lots of sliding doors moments, Spalletti.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on the sliding doors moment. My main takeaway from this game, besides the Mariners win, is bring back the sauce bottles.
Hopefully it's a little bit less windy next time around. But that will do here on the A-Leagues of Our Own YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone in the chat, so much for joining us. It's great fun. We've done 2 of these now, and we've enjoyed them. And again, we'll be back on Saturday for the concurrent games in the A-League men's between the F3 Derby, the Central Coast Mariners, the Newcastle Jets, and of course the Wellington Phoenix playing Macarthur, both Wellington and Central Coast on the tilt for the premiership. But that'll do for here. We're going to sign off now. Thanks again for everyone watching.